Man, I see why people wear powder in movies. I'm a sweaty boy. Turn this down. A little less shiny. Oof, still pretty shiny. Hello, YouTube. Great to see you all. Thank you for clicking this video. So for me as a freelance videographer and a freelance photographer, I often find myself in situations where I'm not able to run to my gear bag and swap lenses. Oftentimes the gear I've chosen to sort of wear on me can be the gear I'm stuck with for the majority of my shoot day. And oftentimes that's events or things like weddings or other commercial gigs where just going back and forth and swapping lenses is not an option. So for me, I mentioned this a lot in my last video with the Nikon Z6, having versatile gear is absolutely key for my workflow. Now, to add to that versatility, I also don't have a ton of money. I'm not one of those really rich photographers that kind of can call up Nikon or Canon, whoever, and say, hey, send me these lenses. I hope to get there one day. Wouldn't that be really cool? But we're not there yet. And so for me, versatility is also key because I need my gear to be able to serve me across multiple jobs. So I'm not out buying, every new lens or having, 30 different things to choose from. It needs to sort of be able to fill multiple tools. So let's talk lenses. As a Nikon Z series shooter, I'm shooting this on the Nikon Z6 II. My other camera body is the Nikon Z6 Mark I. What is that versatile lens? What is that one piece of gear, that one specific lens that I sort of count on for most jobs? It's this guy right here. Now this lens right here is the Nikon 35mm 1.8S. Now this lens I've had for just about 8 months now, and the majority of the work that you've seen either on my YouTube or Instagram or my website, if it's been posted in the last 6 months, there's a good chance that this lens right here was a piece of that work. So let's talk technical for a second on this lens. This is a 35mm focal length lens. Its filter thread is a 62mm filter thread. So for all of your ND filters or your polarizers, those are 62mm, which is great because it's a very common thread count. There's a good chance you might have another lens that uses this thread count as well. It comes alongside the lens caps on either side and a lens hood, a petal-shaped lens hood, which is this guy right here. Which is great. It's made of a hard plastic, so it can protect it from a fall, but also helps cut some of that light coming in. The light leaks off the side of the lens. It weighs approximately 370 grams, and I talked about this in my last video as well. This is an incredibly light lens. If you compare this to some of the other 1.4 or 1.8 glass that we've seen out of Nikon or Sigma or Tamron, this thing is a feather compared to that. When you're cruising around across multiple jobs and you don't have to carry a cinder brick in your camera bag, it's amazing. So very lightweight as well. Now to talk about its build quality for a second, this is a solid feeling lens. It is that new Nikon S series plastic. So if you've held any of the other Nikon S series lens, whether that's the 14-30, the 50mm, any of those S series lenses, they do have this new sort of textured plastic feeling to them. It feels great in the hand. It is arguably one of the sturdier lenses I've ever felt. It is the new Nikon Z mount. It is that wide native mount lens for the Z series. And just sort of feeling it in the hand, if you compare it to some of the older Nikon lenses, like this here is the 85mm 1.8G, you hold them both in the hand, it just feels better. It almost makes these older G lenses feel cheap in comparison, if that makes sense. So it's just something with the plastic and the texture and the weight of it overall just comes together to make a really, really nice package. So look and feel is really attractive. Now, to get away from the technical stuff for a while and to talk maybe about its function, is to say that this lens, as I keep saying, is a complete and total versatile beast of a lens. I actually started making, the original idea for this video is going to be, I'll look over my top 10 favorite images from my Nikon Z6 camera last year. And as I was going through them, I realized every image I was selecting was actually taken on this lens. And I got me thinking I should probably talk about that first. You know what I mean? Like if every photo I'm picking as my favorite photo from last year was shot on this, there's a good chance it has something to do with the lens as well. But yeah, when I get to a job, whether that's a wedding or if that's a commercial event or some sort of video work, whatever, I often just find myself reaching for this by and large, unless I'm really trying to, you know, get some extra reach out of an 85, or if I do need the 14 to 30. But I would honestly say, you know, between 75, 85% of my jobs, it's this guy I'm reaching for first. Now, the colors that come out of this lens are your classic, beautiful Nikon colors. I think Taylor Jackson said it in a lot of his videos, but Nikon colors just have this sort of art-like feel to them. And I think that's really well said. This lens in particular, I think, is one of the best examples of a lens that really pulls those like true to life colors, but adds a bit of an artistic flair to them just straight out of camera. And then when you actually get the chance to get them into Lightroom or Capture One, there's so much good data inside of those colors that really let you color grade or play with them and add some of your own unique flair as well. So again, just talking about that actual function piece, the image quality that you get out of this is amazing. Now, to get away from the actual specific lens for a second, but just to talk about that 35mm focal length, is to say that it is widely considered to be the jack of all trades focal length. And I really agree with that. For me, when I'm out traveling, perhaps, it's a great landscape focal length. You know, you can still, it's wide enough that you can get that whole landscape in there. It's beautiful, but it's also tight enough that if you want to grab a subject, have them stand in the frame or to the side of the frame, you still can kind of contextualize them in that overall image without taking away from either. I often find if you go to a 24 or a 20 or even wider to something like a 14, to add a subject at that focal length, it seems like the image is too wide to include something in the foreground as well. Whereas 35, it begins to sort of close in on that subject, but still add valuable context to that frame. Now that's just talking about landscapes. As many of you know, I primarily do weddings. It's one of the sort of main freelance gigs I take on. And that 35mm focal length, what I just said applies to weddings as well. It's great for sort of capturing the moment, which is often, you know, a beautiful moment between bride and groom, but it still sort of brings a wider context of the room into that scene as well. And so you can often capture, you know, this intimate moment where your eyes are drawn into the subject, but you still get to see whatever's happening in that room, or if you've got them on a mountaintop or something like that, it perfectly sort of brings that all together. And so again, this specific lens aside, I often just find myself pulled into that 35mm focal length because it is such a good jack of all trades focal length. So that's mostly been photos we're talking about. I mean, all of that does apply to videos, but to talk specifically about videos for a second, I do find this lens to be an awesome video lens on the Z series system as well. Its autofocus is like tack sharp on the Z6 II, which I've been using it on mainly. I don't find that it's going to be hunting for autofocus or like looking for the subject's eyes or anything like that. I have not found that yet. I've only been using the Z6 II for about a month. But in that time, I just haven't ran into any sort of issue with its autofocus. So I feel like this lens paired with that camera has been just an incredible workhorse setup so far for me. Now I know there's been some complaints thrown at Nikon for not having a 1.4 or even a 1.2 35mm. It's fair, you know, I do think, again, people often equate the 1.4 focal length with that sort of professional look. But as someone who traded in a Sigma Art 35mm 1.4 for this lens, I can more or less promise you that you will not miss that 1.4 focal length. All of the benefits that you get out of using this lens, the autofocus, the colors, its sort of compatibility with the Z system natively, all of that compensates for that extra little stop that you get at the 1.4 and that little bit of extra creaminess and bokeh you get at 1.4. To me, that trade-off is more than worth it for this lens. So who is this lens for? The 35mm 1.8S. The answer to that question is this lens is for anyone who owns a Nikon Z camera. I sincerely mean that. If you are in the Nikon Z lineup and you don't own this lens, you are doing yourself a disservice. This to me is the bread and butter. It is the jack of all trades, as I said, lens for this camera lineup. It performs incredibly in all scenarios. whether you're just taking pictures of your family and you're a hobbyist, whether you're a freelancer like myself, maybe you're a specialty guy. I feel like this lens just serves every single purpose so damn well. And it just belongs to any owner who's invested in the Nikon Z lineup. When I think of a lens that is versatile, that is affordable and functional, this is the lens that comes to mind. So yeah, that's kind of my review. Like I said, and I've kind of been rambling this whole time, this is a versatile, great lens. If you are a freelancer, this should be in your camera bag right now. And if it isn't, go run out and get it. Yeah, I hope that was helpful. If you guys enjoyed this video, feel free to let me know down below. I hate to say this, I hate to sound like that cliche YouTuber, but hitting the like button does help. So feel free to hit that like button and do consider subscribing if you guys have enjoyed the videos. I plan on making more videos about the Nikon Z system, as well as some other stuff I have going on, some behind the scenes projects that I'm working on. So do feel free to subscribe, and thanks again. Take care.